Mitsubishi Heavy Industries.
140、39、38、37、36、35、34、33、32、31、130、29、28、
T minus 2 minutes and counting.
26、25、24、23、22、21、120、19、18、17、16、15、14。
Launch pad floodlights creating a luminescent effect on the H-2B rocket as it prepares to begin its journey to send the final HTV cargo craft to the International Space Station.
1段液体酸素系準備完了。
Pressurization complete of the liquid oxygen system of the first stage.
90 seconds until launch.
2段液体酸素系液体水素系準備完了。
Followed by the pressurization of liquid oxygen and hydrogen system of the second stage, and they are now complete.
76、75、74、73、72、71、70、69、60。
スペクター冷却開始。
1 minute until launch. Everything in good shape. T minus 44 seconds. T minus 30 seconds and counting. T minus 14 seconds and counting, standing by for engine ignition.
The flight mode on.
We have engine start.
電池起動。
Activating the thermal batteries.
電システム準備完了。
All systems are go.
メインエンジンスタート。
And we have liftoff. A rising sun over the land of the rising sun as JAXA's H-2B rocket and the HTV-9 cargo craft take flight.
飛行機は2020年5月21日午前2時31分00秒に
Roll, pitch, and yaw program in effect. The H-2B rocket takes flight to the International Space Station.
Space Center at 2:31:00 a.m.
Liftoff occurring right on the dot at 12:31 p.m. even Central Time, 2:31 a.m.
打
Japan
ち上げ以
time.
降ロケットの完成は
44 seconds into the flight.
竹崎総合司令塔に引き継がれ
Just passing 1 minute into the flight, everything continuing to look good.
ロケットは正常に飛行中であり、種子島の地上局は正常にロケットの追尾を行っています。
The H-2B flight is
4 solid rocket boosters, 2 liquid fuel engines propelling the HTV-9 towards its preliminary orbit, coming up on the 1 minute 30 second mark into the flight. Coming up on the 2 minute mark into the flight, coming up on solid rocket booster shutdown and separation.
SOB is confirmed.
SRBA 第一
And we have solid rocket booster jettison.
Version of the first and second pairs of SOBs.
2.5 minutes into the flight. First stage engines are continuing to fire, as they will until about the 5 minute 46-second mark into the flight, at which point those engines will shut down. The first stage will separate. Three minutes, 10 seconds into the flight, everything proceeding normally. The first stage continues to burn in excellent shape. All good reports coming in from the Range Control Center at Tanegashima.
The first stage engine, attitude control, and trajectory are all normal. The HTV flight is on hold. Current altitude is about 93 kilometers. Velocity is approximately 1.9 kilometers per second.
Coming up on the 4-minute mark into the flight. About 2 minutes to go in first stage performance. The H-2B rocket is operating in normal fashion. Four and a half minutes into the flight, which has been flawless so far. Everything proceeding well. Good first stage performance. The solid rocket boosters that separated just over 2 minutes into the flight did their job in augmenting the dual first stage engines on the H-2B rocket. This is the final flight of the H-2B to be replaced with the new H-3 rocket that JAXA will be employing for its new genre of cargo craft called the HTV-X that is scheduled to launch about 2 years from now. 5 minutes, 5 seconds into the flight.
It's 5 minutes after the liftoff.
ロケットは順調に飛行を続けており、現在の高度は約 155km、秒速約 4km です。
The combustion of the first stage engine, attitude control, and trajectory are all normal. The H-2B flight is on course. Current altitude is about 155 kilometers. Velocity is approximately 4.0 kilometers per second.
Five minutes, 56 seconds into the flight.
The first stage engine cut off.
第1弾、第2弾ロケット分離。
Separation of the first and second stages.
And now we have confirmation of separation of the first and second stages. This is animation driven by real-time telemetry from the Range Control Center at Tanegashima. The second stage is now up and running. The single engine on the second stage is firing and will continue to do so for about 8.5 minutes, almost 9 minutes of performance. The second stage ignition occurred on time. The trajectory of the vehicle is reported to be perfect. Second stage engine cutoff will come at about the 14.5 minute mark into the flight. Coming up on the 8-minute mark into the flight, which so far has been flawless. The second stage engine continues to burn in a nominal fashion to continue propelling the HTV-9 cargo craft towards its preliminary orbit. As the HTV-9 lifted off from Tanegashima, there were kanpai, as they say in Japanese, cheers in the Launch Control Center, marking the start of the final flight of the H-2B rocket and the final flight of this class of HTV cargo craft that made its debut in September of 2009. Passing the 8.5-minute mark into the flight, as you can see from this telemetry-driven animation provided by the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, the trajectory is on the money. For the second stage performance continues to be good from the reports being received from the Range Control Center at Tanegashima. Launch engineers continue to report nominal performance for the H-2B rocket. Now passing the 9.5-minute mark into the flight. Again, the highlight component of the cargo being carried to the International Space Station, the final half-dozen brand new lithium-ion batteries and associated adapter plates that will be installed on the far starboard truss of the International Space Station, the S6 truss. A series of EVAs or spacewalks are being considered for potting into the crew's timeline later on this summer. EVA preparations are being conducted, and the space station program will make a final determination on how those EVAs will be dispositioned in the weeks to come. Again, the battery replacement work began in January of 2017 on the truss segments of the International Space Station to provide the final upgrades for the station's power system for the remainder of its lifetime. "11 minutes into the flight, we have about 4 minutes and change of second stage performance left for the H-2B rocket. The velocity of the H-2B rocket is matching all of the pre-launch parameters. Good second stage performance. Good vehicle control as we are coming up on the 12-minute mark into the flight. Once again, from the animation that you're looking at provided by the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, the vehicle traveling some 6,700 meters per second. Good reports continue to come in from the Range Control Center at Tanegashima, where liftoff occurred 12 minutes and 45 seconds ago. Telemetry from the H-2B rocket and the HTV-9 cargo ship being processed through a series of ground stations being employed by the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency on the trajectory of its flight. We're about 2 minutes away from the completion of second stage performance. "14 minutes into the flight, everything continuing to go well. Good vehicle control being reported. Good engine performance on the second stage. Meanwhile, the International Space Station has crossed the west coast of Africa, moving from southwest to northeast. And we have a report of second stage shutdown on time. We'll be standing by for spacecraft separation moments from now. "15 minutes into the flight, standing by for spacecraft separation." And this view now from the Range Control Center at Tanegashima. Applause as we have confirmation of spacecraft separation. The HTV-9 now in its preliminary orbit. A flawless launch and a flawless climb to orbit for the final HTV vehicle, now well on its